guys, it's Nurse J, Nurse in the Truth. I hope everyone's having a great day. Well, Nurse J is working on little to no sleep and little to no energy. But got to move on. I've got to work tomorrow at the hospital, so I've got to have energy, and I have my stone for grounding because I need it. But I'm not too tired for truth. So let's talk about the flood. Whether it happened all over, whether it happened in a little area, doesn't matter. What we will talk about for the next few minutes is the tablets. So you ask, well, where were these tablets found? Well, there was these tablets, about 20,000 of them, give or take. And these tablets were found underneath King Ashurbanipal's ziggurat in his library. And they were found in the 1800s. And a lot of them have been translated and a lot of them have not. But they're scattered all over the world. Oh, excuse me. Scattered all over the world, not translated. And probably for a good reason, because they tell a lot of truth. Now, but what is very interesting about all of this is the Sumerian people were the first people that really did, the writing. And they put on cuneiform clay tablets. And, there was something called cuneiform tablet WB-62, and there's a WB-144 about some kings list and such. Now, it's pretty interesting that they had recordings of before the flood. This flood that we hear about in the stories, whether it be Greek, Hindu, Sumerian, Hebrew, okay, but this is the very first one. Now, Berosus was a Babylonian high priest, and he said he got his information from Babylon records and Sumerian records and such. So we have the Sumerian recording, King's List. We have Berosus, and I think we have the Genesis 4 list, Genesis 5 list, Berosus list, and Sumerian list. You can look that up on the computer. But what is very interesting about this is we have, say, the biblical characters: Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Melahel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah, right? So let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. Wow. Let's see what the Sumerian king list says. Alulim, Alagar, Enmin-Luana, Enmin-Galana, Dumuzi the shepherd, Enki's son, Ensapazanana, Enmi-Duranki. There was a divine ruler, but it didn't say the name. It just says a question mark. Tutu, and Zoasundra. So, where have we heard Zoasundra's name from? Babylon, the Assyrian flood, right? Correct. So, Samaria flood, Babylonian flood, Assyrian flood, Greek flood. So the Greek is going to be Deucalion. Hebrew is going to be Noah. Babylon, is going to be Zuasundra. So, list goes on and on. So, is it a situation that really this Adam guy was the first king, but really his name was Alulam? And then Seth is Alagar. Do you understand the implications of what I'm saying to you guys? So they're going to take the actual Sumerian king list of the people that actually existed of the first time period and call it their own, for their own writing. And then screw the people's brains up that live in the Middle East that was actually their descendants. Do you not understand the implications of this? This happened in the Middle East, in that area. So you're going to take the writings of the time and the people that are over there now, and you know what I'm talking about, they look like me. And the actual Sumerian, Babylonia, the Syrian list, they're giving them a mind warp. The problem is, the cities of the Sumerian kings are so important. And you have that Adam and Seth, Alulam and Alagar might have stayed close to home to Ninti, Ninhursag, and Enki. And Bad Tibra is the bright place where the ores are made final. And the kingship might have been shifted to Bad Tira during the time that Enos was beginning the priesthood. The Sumerian Kings list is very important because the reigns are listed with specific SARs and or years. In the Bible, you remember how it gave the people on how old they lived. And remember, Methuselah was 965 years old and was the oldest living patriarch of the time. And in the SARs and the years of the Sumerian kings, they lived a long time too. Have you ever thought that when Enki and Ninman and Hursag Ninti, they were not going to let us live long? So it's a situation where everything was genetically modified again, where there was something to do with the genetic pool. And that's why we're not living that long. They only gave us up to 120 years. Now, I don't know who the oldest person was that has ever lived and has ever died, but it specifically states in the Sumerian tablets that the spirit will not be with man, or God, the spirit will not be with man, and they only gave us 120 years. But the reigns are listed with specific years. There's a possibility that the biblical listing simply did not include the reigns of Adam, for then it would have had the problem of explaining over whom the biblical kings before the flood were ruling. And there is no particular reason why the lifetimes of Adam and the gang should correlate with the Sumerian reigns. On the other hand, Adam could have begun his reign when he was considerably older and when there were lots of little Adam Juniors, Seth Juniors, etc. running around, the author says. So it says that Lamech begins Noah, and also known as Uasundra and or Tepishtim in the Babylonian. By the time of the seventh generation after Enos and the time of Noah, the earth and its inhabitants were beginning gripped by an ice age, and there was great suffering, food shortages, even cannibalism. When Lamech begat his firstborn son, he named him Noah, which means respite. Lamech evidently hoped that Noah's birth would be a signal, a respite from the work and toil that cometh from the earth which the Lord hath cursed. We know also that Noah was born in Sharupach, the medical center run by Nintin and Hersag. Accordingly, Noah was under the tutelage of Enki and his half-sister. This becomes important later, the author says. The Lord, meanwhile, refers to the Lord of the command, the commander-in-chief Enlil. The Sumerian text also relates that as mankind's hardships were increasing, Enki suggested and Enlil vehemently opposed the taking of measures to alleviate the suffering. What apparently was upsetting Enlil no end was the increasing sexual relationships between the young male Anunnaki and the daughters of man. The difficulty of Lord Enlil is best described in Genesis, where after a plethora of begetting in chapter 5, chapter 6 starts off with a return to the drama. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them as wives of all that they chose. There has always been a question among scholars as to exactly who the sons of God were. Obviously, it doesn't take a minor league genius and reader of those annals to figure that the sons of God were the Anunnaki. Young Anunnaki at loose ends, with nothing much to do except compose themselves. And numerous Sumerian texts do, in fact, relate different instances of the rank and file Anunnaki asking for permission to marry or obtain advice from someone on a particular human female. Now, in one text, for example, the story is told of a young god named Martu, who complained that he too should be permitted to espouse a human wife. Martu, of course, already had his eyes on someone in particular, the daughter of a priest in the city of Ninab. Desiring her, Martu went to his mother and asked permission to take the human as wife. When it was determined by his mother that the maiden appreciated his gaze, Martu received the goddess's consent. Unfortunately, it was just this sort of thing that increasingly made Enlil mad, who was disturbed by mankind's pronouncements and its infatuation with sex and lust. Clearly, Enlil would make an ideal fundamentalist in today's world, and may in fact be the god of fundamentalists are inadvertently worshiping. And it says, there were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. Some were mighty men, which were of old men and renowned. Now, Enlil didn't like it. And he saw the wickedness. You see, the Hebrew scribes had made this so bad in the KJV version for sinners. And it says, and God saw the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts in their heart was evil continually. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man, beast, and creepy thing, and fowls, for it repenteth me that I've made them. Well, first of all, We know that's BS because Enki made the genetic changes. And we are the result of the genetic changes, and we are the modern man. And Enlil was mad because Enki gave us the tools of procreation. But, Enlil, you dirty rat bastard, you raped someone and you were exiled and you raped your sister. And then you had to end up marrying her. So you don't start your crap, Enlil. You get on to humankind when you did a dirty thing yourself. Interestingly enough, God, also known as Enlil, concluded from the fact that since his troops were consorting with the daughters of man, that the wickedness of man was great, and there is a certain lack of rationality on the part of Enlil. The Anunnaki go slumming, and Enlil decides to take it out on the fathers of the females with whom the Anunnaki are slumming. And it goes on to say that Enlil decides on the basis that he will destroy every beast and everything. And Enlil then somehow justifies this ultimate in homicide, beasticide, foulicide, and creeping thing aside by nothing. And the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. The Sumerian version departs from the biblical story by suggesting that Enlil tried numerous other methods of countering the corrupt nature of man before he determined to flood them out. Moreover, there is every reason to believe that Enlil could not have been responsible for the flood, that it was a natural catastrophe far beyond his powers. But it was a natural disaster, but he didn't want to tell us it was coming. And Enki told. So, makes me want to say, so who's your daddy now? Who's your father? The Bible God that we know they got these stories from? The very first writings that tell us all of this, and then we have this to compare to the first? Lots of bloodlines running out there, folks. You see, Enlil didn't have a human wife that I'm aware of. I could be wrong, but not what I've read so far. Enki had human relations. And then the gene pool of Enki and the human relations has spread all over. But you have to understand, Marduk had a human wife as well. I'm not too sure about Ninurta or Nergal or Inanna. I'm not too sure about them. So is it a situation that the Enlil genes of truth It's making them mad. Or are they still looking at us as slaves? I don't know, but I do know that Enki loves his creations. Him and Ninhursag-Ninti, the Lady of the Rib, your Mother Earth, your Mother of Life, your Isis, your Ptah. They kept their deformed children. Even though he was a geneticist, you try and try again until you get the perfect one, the perfect man. And even though they were born not perfect, he still cared for them. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed the Sumerian Kings list. And I hope it opened your eyes that the father of humanity today, the modern Homo sapiens sapien, is Enki. Hope to see you next time, guys. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and please keep searching for truth. And like Godthal says in the back, when you search for truth and you find the truth, then the truth will and shall set you free.